We are following breaking news. Ozzy Osbourne, the legendary heavy metal singer known as the Prince of Darkness, has died at the age of 76.
Good evening. Fans in Hollywood and beyond calling Osbourne's passing heartbreaking and bittersweet. Many say they're glad they got to see him on stage just a couple of weeks ago and say he really ended on a high note.
Music is what it is because of Ozzy.
I met Ozzy when I was around 18, and he came into my father's office for management with Black Sabbath. So I was 18 when I first met him.
What if the last thundercore of rock legend could hang in the air for only 17 days before the world fell silent? That single, chilling thought froze 40,000 fans outside Villa Park when headlines announced that John Michael Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath's mad prophet, reality TV dad, and eternal mischief maker, had slipped quietly away at 76. They were still hoarse from chanting his name, still scrolling through cell phone videos of his final bow, and suddenly the man whose shriek once seemed immortal was gone. Rewind to the humid dusk of July 5th, 2025. Floodlights bathe Birmingham's football cathedral as a gothic throne rises from the smoke like something raided from a Hammer horror set. Cerebral shivers ripple through the crowd. Everyone knows Ozzy's Parkinson stiff frame can barely stand. But when the chair halts at center field, he grips the armrests, pushes, slow, shaky, stubborn, and teeters upright. A single ragged howl slices the air. Villa Park detonates. It isn't perfect, it's electric. For 10 explosive hours of back to beginning, festival rattles the Midlands. Metallica storms the stage, Guns N' Roses slam into Sweet Child O' Mine, and Slash trades riffs with Tony Iommi on a molten Paranoid. Jason Momoa headbangs in the wings while Sharon Osbourne paces, like a battlefield general, clipboard clutched. This is not merely a concert. It is a life-or-death victory lap for a man who once promised he'd rather die on stage than fade in a hospital bed. Money pours in. Nearly $190 million earmarked for children's hospitals and Parkinson's research. Yet whispers ripple backstage. Rumor has it Sharon blacklisted a major act after his manager demanded a cut of the charity proceeds. Iron Maiden? Motley Crue? No one confirms. But no one dares challenge the Queen of Darkness tonight. Instead, the crowd basks in fireworks that scream overhead while Ozzy cackles between verses. Half prince and half prankster to the very end. How did we arrive at such a bittersweet crescendo? Trace the tremors back to Aston's soot-stained terraces, where a dyslexic kid with a penchant for practical jokes first heard the Beatles and decided music was a ticket out of factory drudgery. He tried burglary, served time in Winson Green, and finally auditioned for the blues outfit that morphed into Black Sabbath. With Iommi's crushing riffs and Geezer Butler's occult-tinged lyrics, Ozzy's glass grinder voice birthed heavy metal, raw, bleak, and hypnotic. Success came laced with chaos. By the late 70s, he'd bitten a dove's head off in a record label lobby, been fired for unmanageable intoxication, and crawled half-conscious across a hotel hallway, wearing Sharon's nightgown after a booze blackout. Yet each scandal only amplified the myth. Ozzy, the unkillable anti-hero whose sins were forgiven the moment he shrieked the opening of Crazy Train. That myth exacted a bone-deep toll. Decades of stage dives, pyrotechnic mishaps, and marathon drinking eroded his spine and twisted his nervous system. A quad bike crash in 2003 smashed ribs and vertebrae. A 2019 fall dislodged surgical metal, triggering nerve damage that left him clinging to walkers. Diagnosed with Parkinson's back in 2003, he spent nights trembling, cursing, begging his body to obey. More than once he told Sharon the stage was the only medicine that ever worked, yet the fire never dimmed. In the studio, he could still summon that saw blade timbre. In conversation, he cracked jokes about funeral playlists and decapitated bats. When surgeons fused the spine a third time, he quipped that if they installed wheels, he'd happily roll onto stage. Buried in that joke was a promise. If a stage appeared, he'd crawl onto it. That promise birthed the farewell spectacle. Sharon booked Villa Park, rallied heavyweight bands, and dared the world to watch her husband prove every obituary wrong. Ozzy practiced sitting vocal takes, rehearsed breathing exercises, and conditioned battered lungs like a prize fighter. Every rehearsal ended the same way. Ozzy wiping sweat, grinning and muttering, "Not dead yet." Now, seated on that throne, he's living the punchline. Between songs, he growls self-deprecating one-liners. "I've hammered nails into coffins tougher than me." And the audience roars. Missed notes don't matter. Grit does. When the final chord of Children of the Grave fades, he whispers, almost inaudible, "I can finally sleep." The crowd thinks he's kidding. Ozzy always jokes. 17 days later, they realize he meant it. And so, on that humid July night, every torchlit selfie and shaky livestream carried more than nostalgia. It carried the weight of promise shared between artist and audience, that even a battered body can still channel something fierce and transcendent. Villa Park became a living testament to persistence, beating like a colossal heart beneath England's summer stars. For newcomers, it was a crash course in rock mythology. For diehards, it felt like the universe giving one last wink before the curtain. None of them knew that the celebration they were filming, those pixelated sparks, those half-audible screams, would become the opening scene of a far darker finale. When the stage lights died and the last rocket fizzled into smoke, Ozzy's entourage hustled him to a backstage medical suite. Technicians unclipped heart monitors streaming vitals to a neurologist in California, while a massage therapist fought the cramps twisting his legs. Sharon kissed his forehead, whispered, "You did it, love," and wheeled him toward a private jet. For most artists, the credits roll here. For Ozzy, the hardest scenes were still ahead. The next week, he became the prince of physiotherapy. Dawn to dusk, specialists stretched stiff limbs and ran electrodes along damaged nerves. Fans scrolling social saw only smiling snapshots. Ozzy flashing devil horns beside grandkids. Ozzy FaceTiming Robert Trujillo. Ozzy stroking the family Pomeranian. Kelly Osbourne later admitted the truth was grittier. Night sweats, muscle spasms, oxygen machines humming like distant synths at bedside. Still he planned. Sony pitched a deluxe box set of unreleased Blizzard of Oz demos, and Ozzy insisted on choosing the track order. He argued about liner note fonts. "Make and big for old bat blind fans like me." He joked about hologram tours, cracking that at least a hologram never needs cortisone shots. Then the rumor storm hit. A tabloid dug up an old interview where Sharon half-joked about a Swiss exit strategy if Alzheimer's ever struck. Headlines mutated into doom countdowns. Secret suicide pact? Talk shows debated assisted death clinics. Conspiracy forums tracked jet flights to Zurich. Kelly snapped, calling it trash for clicks. But behind closed doors, the family confronted grim possibilities. What happens when pain outweighs purpose? Ozzy, ever the contrarian, brushed it off. "If I wanted off myself, I'd just play disco," he told a nurse. Yet off camera, he spent long afternoons on the patio, eyes closed, listening to Sabbath vinyls on a vintage turntable. Friends say he'd pause at random riffs, smile, and whisper, "I can still hear the mistakes." His body, however, wouldn't cooperate. The 2019 fall had punctured spinal fluid pathways. Every stumble risked infection or paralysis. Parkinson's meds triggered tremors at odd hours. One dawn, he collapsed reaching for coffee, and only a quick-thinking assistant prevented a cracked skull. Doctors begged him to rest. He compromised. He'd stop physical rehearsals but croon "Crazy Train" under his breath until Sharon begged him to save the notes for grandchildren. That obsession sparked talk of a shorter charity show in Los Angeles. Promoters dangled staggering sums. Sharon drew the line. She'd watch him endure 5 spinal surgeries and 36 rehabs. One more gig might kill him, she warned. They countered with offers of a streaming special from his living room. Ozzy laughed. "What am I supposed to do? Headbang from a lazy boy." Even as negotiations sputtered, the farewell film moved forward. Director Tom Morello shipped 8K footage to London editors. Jason Momoa recorded narration, adding baritone gravitas to lines like, "From industrial ashes rose a voice that would shake heaven." Ozzy demanded final cut rights. Editors panicked. He surprised them. The only change he wanted was to boost crowd mics during Iami's solo, so that people at home feel the hair on their arms stand up. But love wasn't the only thing rattling. Days after that note, Sharon spotted spreading bruises on Ozzy's arms. Blood panels showed clotting anomalies. Pulmonary scans hinted at microembolisms. Doctors urged hospitalization. Ozzy resisted. Hospitals smell like endings. Sharon coaxed him, promising it was just overnight. He agreed on one condition: bring a portable record player. Nurses wheeled him in vinyl spinning as he joked, "Play changes if I flatline, irony, darling." Within 48 hours, oxygen saturation dipped. A mild infection snowballed into septic shock. The man who'd howled through decades of self-inflicted damage was suddenly fragile beyond reckoning. Sharon squeezed his trembling hand. "I'm not going anywhere," she vowed. Ozzy blinked, joking through an oxygen mask. Worst duet partner ever. Outside the ICU, phones melted. Tony Iommi rushed from rehearsal in Italy. Geezer Butler grabbed a red eye from LA Global fans, lit candles, blasted Sabbath songs, and posted midnight tributes. One teenager in Sao Paulo live-streamed herself playing Iron Man on a battered Strat, sobbing between riffs. Across continents, a generation not yet born when Ozzy first bit a bat found unity in collective dread. Somewhere in those fraught hours, he scrawled a note on hotel stationery. 3 jagged symbols now picked apart like runes. A crooked heart, a lightning bolt, and a question mark. Song idea? Private joke? Sign of unfinished business? Sharon slipped the scrap into the family safe, promising she'd reveal its meaning when the time is right. Until then, it hangs over the narrative like an unresolved chord, daring listeners to hunt for answers hidden between feedback lines. Eventually, the monitor slowed. No dramatic Hollywood flatline, just a soft retreat of beeps as nurses disconnected tubes. Ozzy slipped into sleep, Sharon later said, like a man clocking off after the longest shift of his life. The date? July 22nd, exactly 17 days after the Villa Park blaze. Word trickled from hospital corridors to WhatsApp groups, then erupted across news wires. The Prince of Darkness took his bow not in pyrotechnic glory, but beneath the quiet glow of a ward's fluorescent halo. News moved at the speed of riffs. TMZ dropped the headline first. Within minutes, phones from Birmingham pubs to Tokyo arcades buzzed with push alerts. Streams of Crazy Train spiked 2,000%, turning home pages into gothic shrines. TikTok teens lip-synced Bark at the Moon under tear emoji filters. In Aston, counselors drafted a motion to rename a stretch of Grove Lane Ozzy Way, while a busker outside New Street Station cranked a battery amp and thrashed Mr. Crowley until his fingers bled. Tributes poured in like stacked Marshall amps. Tony Iommi wrote, "My brother to the end," beneath a Polaroid of them mock wrestling backstage. Geezer Butler posted a broken heart emoji under a tour bus snapshot, where Ozzy flashes devil horns with jelly-stained lips. James Hetfield confessed, "No voice ever rattled my spine harder." Jason Momoa shared behind-the-scenes selfies, crowning Ozzy the ultimate barbarian bard. Not everyone joined the chorus. The pre-recorded Marilyn Manson tribute aired at the farewell show, already controversial, vanished from promo feeds within hours. Activists argued you can't eulogize a legend by platforming an alleged abuser. Even in death, Ozzy stirred moral quandaries. Chaos, compassion, transgression, redemption fused in a single blast furnace. Behind headlines, the private reckoning began. Jack and Amy Osbourne huddled over estate papers, funneling new streaming revenue into Parkinson's foundations. Kelly curled beside her father's leather jacket, inhaling the scent of stage smoke and sandalwood. Sharon announced a public memorial at Birmingham Cathedral, donations to children's hospitals in lieu of flowers, and pledged half of the concert film profits to medical research, half to music education grants. Journalists debated legacy. Some fixated on bats, the Alamo urination scandal, and the suicide solution lawsuit that tried to blame him for a teen tragedy. Others highlighted resilience. He clawed from poverty to platinum, survived substance abuse that would fell mythic beasts, and recorded genre-defining albums while battling tremors. Sociologists credited him with turning working-class Midlands angst into global catharsis, transforming raw social frustration into thunderous art. Yet numbers can't chart impact. 100 million records sold. Stadiums conquered. Those are scrapbook stats. The real testament is experiential. Goosebumps when the ominous tritone of Black Sabbath rings in a dark arena. The catharsis teenagers find screaming, "I'm going off the rails." into bedroom mirrors, the way a gray-haired grandmother now hums Mama, I'm coming home, because it recalls 1991 road trip sunsets. Those memories form an invisible choir louder than any PA. Then came the unlikely second act, the Osbourne's reality show. Critics expected cringe voyeurism. Audiences found a tender portrait of a loud, loving, dysfunctional family. Ozzy, bewildered by remotes and muttering F-bomb-laced lullabies to pets, became pop culture's favorite befuddled dad. Soccer moms who once banned Sabbath records laugh along, proving heavy metal hearts can melt into domestic comedy. Ironically, that sitcom underscored the theme powering his legend: survival. He survived a disastrous quad bike crash, countless rehabs, bankruptcy scares, and industry eager to caricature him. He survived lawsuit satire and the shadow of his own myth. Most of all, he survived fame long enough to reshape it into something empowering. In his final interview, he was asked to define legacy. He chuckled, "Legacy? I'm just trying to make it to breakfast." Maybe that humility was the secret. By stripping grandiosity from self-image, he stayed fluid. He could record heartfelt ballads like Dreamer beside pulverizing tracks like On the Graveyard, proving vulnerability and ferocity coexist in one gravelly throat. Now his voice is archived and his body at rest. The question flips to us. What do we carry forward? For musicians, it's the fearless blend of darkness and melody. For fans, it's a reminder imperfections don't preclude greatness. They humanize it. For skeptics who dismiss him as a shock rock gimmick, perhaps it's time to reconsider a life that married nuance and noise. And for anyone ever labeled too broken or too weird, Ozzy's story is a battle cry. Stagger, curse, relapse, rise, then forge something immortal. He once told a fledgling guitarist, "Don't try to be perfect. Just be loud enough to drown the demons." That advice echoes now like feedback after a final note. Picture him one last time. Silver hair whipping in the night breeze, eyes gleaming under stage lights, voice cracking but unstoppable as he snarls, "God bless you all, good night." Fireworks roar, amps fizzle, darkness settles. Yet in that darkness, a seed of inspiration sprouts in millions of hearts, riffing eternally, daring us to chase our passions with reckless joy. Because the tragedy of Ozzy Osbourne isn't that he died. It's that the rest of us still have time. Time to risk, to scream, to step onto whatever stage calls our name and belt the truth before silence imposes its final curtain. His parting dare remains. What passion would you bleed for, tremble for, crawl for, just to feel alive one more time? Drop your answer below. The story doesn't end with funeral. It roars each time a needle drops on worn vinyl. Each time a teenage outcast discovers a Sabbath riff. Each time someone chooses courage over numbness. Cue the eternal encore, because the Prince of Darkness lit a fuse in our souls, and it's up to us to keep the blaze raging.